Good evening and welcome to the September 17th, 2018 Gaithersburg Mayor and City Council regular session. Those watching at home may be noticing that I am not Mayor Ashman. Mayor Ashman is recovering from a minor back injury, and we wish him a speedy recovery, but as Council Vice President, I will be presiding over the meeting this evening. The first order of business on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'd like to ask Maria Garcia to please come forward and lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is reflection, and I ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes, but because we have a couple of abstentions tonight and a couple of absences, we're going to defer that item until our next regular meeting. So the next item on the agenda after that is appointments. What is the pleasure of the council?
This is for the animal. Oh, yes.
We have a resolution for appointment to the Animal Control Board.
Animal Control Board, a 3-year term for Yamil Hernandez. Is Yamil?
Jamil.
No, looks like Yamil. Is it Yamil? Looks like Yamil. Yamil Hernandez to be appointed for a 3-year term. And what's the
So Councilmember Sales makes the motion.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second. Go ahead.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. The motion carries unanimously. Is Yamil here tonight?
Oh, he is
Why don't you
here.
stand and be recognized? Thank you for volunteering. We appreciate your service. Up next is presentations, and we have a proclamation for Hispanic Heritage Month. I'm going to ask Council Member Sesma to join me at the podium, please. Thank you, Doris. And if we could have Andy Rosati and Ken Weiss, anyone else who's here from the Multicultural Affairs Committee, feel free to come up and join us. And Maria Garcia as well, who's going to be accepting a proclamation from the city. And I'll turn it over to Andy.
Thank you. Good evening. National Hispanic Heritage Month began in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Lyndon Johnson. In 1988, President Ronald Reagan changed the designation to a 30-day time period covering the dates of September 15th through October 15th. It was enacted into law on August 17th, 1988 under Public Law 100-402. According to the U.S. Census, Hispanic Americans are identified by the parts of the world that they or their ancestors came from, including Puerto Rico, Cuba, Mexico, Spain, and the countries of Central and South America. In honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, the Multicultural Affairs Committee is sponsoring an art exhibition by the Latino Art League from September 7th through October 28th at the Activity Center at Boer Park. A celebratory reception, free and open to the public, will be held on September 20th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Ms. Maria Garcia, counselor at Gaithersburg High School, will accept the proclamation.
Thank you, Andy. And I'd like to ask Councilmember Sesma to read the proclamation, please.
Okay. Thank you. It is every year this is an honor for me to be able to do this. It's a proclamation of the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg. Whereas the roots of Hispanic heritage in North America span more than 500 years, and individuals sharing this heritage have made vast contributions to the strength, prosperity, and culture of our nation. The observance celebrates the culture and traditions of U.S. residents who trace their cultural heritage to Spain, Mexico, and the Spanish-speaking nations of Central and South America and the Caribbean. And whereas the Hispanic American community is the largest ethnic minority in the United States, with the 2010 census indicating that approximately 24% of the city of Gaithersburg's population identify themselves as Hispanic or Latino. And whereas the City of Gaithersburg Multicultural Affairs Committee is presenting the Latino Art League of Greater Washington, D.C., an exhibition of multimedia artwork celebrating the group's diverse talents exhibited September 7th through October 28th, 2018 at the Activity Center at Board Park. An artist reception will be held on September 20th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Now, therefore, I, Judd Ashman, I'm speaking for the mayor, of course, by the power vested in Judd as the mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2018 as Hispanic Heritage Month in the city of Gaithersburg, and encourage residents to learn and about and celebrate Hispanic culture and participate in local events and programs taking place throughout the month. It's proclaimed on the 17th day of September 2018, and it's signed by Judd Ashman, Mayor of Gaithersburg. Do the picture first, we're here, and then have the two first.
Ken, please, if you want to say anything, and Maria, if you want to say anything afterwards, please as well.
Okay. To introduce Maria, para presentar a Maria Garcia. Maria was born in New York City and raised in Puerto Rico. She has worked with Hispanic students for 35 years, 20 of them in this area, and she now works as a counselor in the ESOL department of Gaithersburg High School. Maria helps about 300 immigrant children per year to complete the FFSA, the frightening FFSA form, and she organizes workshops on topics like financial aid and understanding our school system. She helps parents navigate the system and deal with the many problems they encounter. Because the need is great, she works on most evenings and weekends and says she actually enjoys it. She developed and runs a program called Schools to Home for parents to talk about the school system and how to help their children succeed, and then she refers them to other sources of assistance. We are very pleased that Maria Garcia is here to accept the proclamation of Hispanic Heritage Month in the city of Gaithersburg. Maria.
On behalf of the Latino community, I would like to thank you for this proclamation. I am blessed with working with Mexican, Central American, and South American students. Their parents come here with the desire, hopes for these children to succeed and to have a better life. And with giving them a little bit more of attention, they can pursue their dreams. These children want the same thing that other children that are here in America want. They want the American dream. And I am proud to say that I do work with these children, that I serve these families. And they also say, in English they say, right, that if you come to work every day and you like what you're doing, it really is not called a job. So thank you again for this proclamation, and happy Hispanic Month to all of you.
Congratulations. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a staff presentation on having a visioning exercise in Gaithersburg. And we welcome to the podium our Director of Planning and Code, John Schlichting.
Thank you, Mr. Council Vice President, and good evening, Mayor and Council. In mid-July, Councilmember Harris reached out to his colleagues and staff proposing that we go through a visioning exercise that would lead to an aspirational look at the future of Gaithersburg. Neil's email received positive feedback from most of his colleagues requesting staff to look into the scope of work and associated costs. Staff is seeking guidance tonight on a process that would lead to an all-day visioning exercise in February 2019 in lieu of the Council's annual planning retreat. The exercise would be led by a third-party facilitator and based primarily on quantitative data. If this overall strategy is endorsed by the Council, the first step would be to develop a clearly defined scope of work for an outside group to assist in assembling, collating, analyzing, and organizing various city data and studies. We would endeavor to issue the scope of work by early October and have the outside group on board by late October. Concurrently, planning staff would develop and issue targeted surveys on various issues to provide the public engagement component. In terms of cost, we believe that this exercise can be accomplished with $40,000 for the outside group, $7,000 for the surveys, and $5,000 for the facilitator for the all-day exercise in February, for a total of $52,000. None of this was anticipated in the FY 2019 budget. We consider this a joint effort between the Planning Division and City Manager's Office with assistance from the Public Information Office. Rob Robinson and I are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions?
Yes.
Councilmember Sales, please.
Thank you. So I'm really excited that we're going to be doing a visioning exercise. I was wondering what went into the decision for have we identified a company, or are we just looking at the potential costs?
We have had discussions, and Rob may better allude to this because he's had many of the discussions himself, but our long-range planning staff have had discussions with several groups, many of the educational institutions in the area, and this $40,000 seems to be the ballpark estimate, yeah.
So we reached out to the Maryland Center for Smart Growth at University of Maryland. We reached out to I forget the organization, George Mason University, the regional one, the one COG often uses. We also reached out to the Center for Regional and Economic Studies at Virginia Commonwealth University, and we also reached out to the Center for Economic and Planning Studies at Towson University. Mm-hmm. So we reached out to the four, big ones sort of in this area.
Are you done?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'll wait. Go ahead.
Yeah. A similar question. I was just was going to ask what kind of what's going in the prospectus or the bid package in terms of what your expectations are for the group and what expertise they would be bringing.
Well, that's the scope of work that we are saying that we're going to develop over the next 3 to 4 weeks, and of course we will run that by you.
Can you give us kind of an outline of what the highest priorities would be for that group?
So basically where we're coming from, we have over the years, both internally in-house, done a number of studies. There's a lot of data, not just for us, but for surrounding us, the area master plans. What we're really looking for, given the compressed time frame, is to have an organization that can come in that's done this to help us sort of put together the whole picture for the council and the public about what's really going on. So we have, over the last couple of years, we have our commuter trends survey. We have tons of data related to housing. We have various, the county's retail study. Mr. Lonergan in economic development, we have data on various other economic sectors. Every year we do our dwelling and population report. So we have all these disparate data sources that by themselves tell an individual story, and what we're really looking for is someone to come in and help us put it together to paint the picture sort of over the last, let's say, 20 years, what is sort of the trajectory we are, where are we today, and given what has occurred, where might we be going tomorrow to help frame the policy discussion about is that the direction, the council envisions, say going out to like 2045. So it's really helping us put together all the pieces, not just from the internal city idea, but also how does this sort of relate to what the Germantown Master Plan says, or what does the Great Seneca Science Quarter, what is coming in on our borders, and just putting all the pieces together.
Okay. Thanks.
So have we also considered that organization out of Asheville that we had seen some of the data from?
We did consider that organization out of Asheville, but our research indicated that they were more of an educational piece as opposed to, the true quantitative data that we're looking for. So we didn't actually pursue that. Of course, if that's something the council wants us to pursue, then we will certainly do that.
Just asking, wanting to get some direction or some concept of where you thought this was going directionally. I mean, just to reiterate something that I said in the email, what I've been hoping for and discussing with you folks and trying to frame up in a manageable project rather than a gigantic project is just trying to make some determination of what our city's strategic goals are going forward in a longer term perspective. What are we going to need more of? What should our housing policy be like in terms of what kind of mix we're going to need for the workforce of the future, residents of the future, what kind of jobs that we want to focus on more, and just try to give some framework so that we can make more informed decisions as we put our plans together for the planning department and everything else. So
Right.
I think it's a great next step that we're taking a much bigger, longer-term view of the future of Gaithersburg
And we
what
see
we're going
this
to do differently from what the Germantown and Rockville and the surroundings will do.
Right. And we see this as really informing the next stages of our master plan, especially the land use element.
I have another question. Is this going to have a marketing component or some idea of who Gaithersburg is? Like some branding? Is that going to be part of the component?
That is why we're involving the Public Information Office. Britta's group is going to help us with that. We do see, we don't want it to be cliche in terms of branding, but we do want some, true qualitative thought as to how we do brand this exercise.
Okay.
We feel we had, we were very pleased with the success we had with the CD zone strategy, with the dedicated web page and the surveys. So we're envisioning something similar here, and the $7,000 for the surveys. That is to use the same company that we used with the CD zone, because we can actually put the fees that we had spent to CD zone towards an unlimited subscription for our department, so we can run any number of surveys. So we think, once again, sort of using that strategy to have some targeted surveys, maybe one just dealing with transportation issues, one dealing with housing, whatever we come up with, we'll be able to do as many short targeted surveys as we wish. And personally myself, as I mentioned, I was very thankful for the help PIO gave us, be it social media blasts to get people engaged, the effort that was put in for the dedicated website that was a little bit different than our other project pages. So we're sort of envisioning the same thing with this.
Okay. Just one process question. The idea from staff is to have this in lieu of our annual planning retreat, the traditional retreat that we do in February. This may be a question for Tony more than for you all, but do we anticipate losing out on that opportunity to kind of have that traditional short-term planning meeting for the year, or do we think that will be compensated in other meetings?
I think we could probably compensate we program another work session and perhaps give a more condensed version of the strategic plan. But it might be nicer to have that a little bit after the exercise.
Yeah. Okay. Neil, you looked like you had another question as well.
I did. So one thing that was a little surprising, it's always good to spend less money than you expect, but this was a lot less money than I thought this exercise would take. So it's good to save money, but we want to make sure that we get what we need out of this. So in terms of this, I can't really address what consultants should cost to bring in. I'm assuming that you folks are well on top of that. I would think that that survey methodology, looking at how we've done them before and how they've been done elsewhere that I've seen, I'd like to make sure that we're as proactive as possible at reaching out to people rather than just sending out postcards and things like that we've done in the past. If there's a way we can, I don't think we want to actually be physically knocking on doors, but if we could consider telephone surveys and things like that, I've seen them work really well, especially if there's a high level of alertness in the population that the phone might ring during a certain time frame for something that is not just selling, automobile warranties or something like that.
Let's just make sure that when the phone rings, it says that the call is from Neil Harris.
As lo- you know, Thank you.
Actually, I think Neil, you make a good point. I think that,
Where's Judd when we need
we
him?
do our survey every other year, and I think we're always a little bit disappointed by the response rate. And I think it's gotten a little bit better. We had the online component this year that was additional. I think that gave us some more data, but I think it would be good to make sure that we are getting this is kind of a little bit different.
Yes.
And we're going to ask people what they want the community to be rather than what they think it is already. I was curious about the cost here too as well. It's good to save money, but I think we don't, we do this so rarely. I think it might have been done once since I was elected in 2005, kind of had a bigger vision, and even that was, I think, limited to a certain part of the city. I think we want to make sure we're investing the resources that we need and getting the consultants that we need to be able to take a really good look at and kind of a long-term view of what the city might be, what we aspire to be, as well as what we can be, what's reasonable. So.
I think Mike brings up another interesting point, which is that this might be something, depending on how our experiment goes in February 2019, this might be something we want to put on the calendar at regular intervals, whether it's every 5 years or every 7 years or whatever we decide makes the most sense. Because we don't want to have someone come along every 10 years or so and go, hey, when's the last time we did one of these? That's a good point. Any other comments from the council? All right. Do you feel properly guided?
So we're assuming that you endorse the concept and that you also endorse the amount of money, at least the $52,000 that is not budgeted currently.
Well, actually, I think both Neil and I were saying, make sure that you get what you need, and if you need to exceed that level, I think you would have the support from the council. At least you'd have it from me and probably Neil. I think if it was well justified and rationalized. If you want to try and cram everything into that budget, then that's.
We'll just
I don't
have
know that
Rob Robinson go door to door.
Okay. I think the consensus is that the budget amount is fine, and we might even be able to spend a little more.
Okay.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
For a good cause.
Thank you all.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is public comments. This is a time that the mayor and council sets aside for anyone to come before us on any topic that is not a public hearing topic on tonight's agenda. Tonight, we do have one public hearing. If anyone would like to speak on any topic other than for that public hearing, now is the time. We ask you please keep your remarks to no more than 3 minutes. Please note the timer will beep and blink yellow when you have 30 seconds left of your 3 minutes, so that you may begin to finish your statement. The timer will beep and turn red when your 3 minutes is up. Please state your name and address or neighborhood for the record. Do we have anyone who would like to speak this evening? Going once? Going twice? All right. Oh, are you coming up to speak? No. Oh, okay, staff. Well, so I guess staff can speak too. Staff can speak too. Our next item on our agenda is a joint public hearing. If the Planning Commission could please join us. Welcome to the Planning Commissioners, and as they get settled, I'll introduce our planner, Jasmine Forbes, to present the hearing, please.
Good evening. So this is a joint public hearing on schematic development plan SDP-7927-2018. As shown on the monitor, the subject property is located at 700 Quince Orchard Road and is zoned MXD. The applicant is requesting to construct a 2-level parking garage, 2 new public streets, and other site improvements. The hearing was duly advertised on August 23rd and August 30th in the Washington Post and posted on the city's website since August 16th. In your packet, you guys should have 35 exhibits, but staff has received an additional exhibit, which is available on the projects page website. The individual exhibits may be reviewed during the course of the meeting or in the Planning Code Administrative Office during regular hours at City Hall or on the city's website. Any objections to the receipt of any exhibit should be noted prior to the closing of the record, otherwise they will be deemed received in evidence. If you notice on your packet, staff really didn't make a recommendation for closing the record, but after the meeting this evening, staff will have some dates to recommend the closing of the records. So I will have Philip Hummel from Lonas and Blocker, who will introduce the project team.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Philip Hummel of Lonas and Blocker, representing the applicant Rockside 700 LLC. With me here tonight also is Andy Glick, Eris Mandarosian, and John Listowka, owners' representatives. Also, we have Mike Goodman and Chanda Buford of VICA, and Bob Wojcik of DVA Architects. We are here tonight on a public hearing for the next phase to achieve the adaptive reuse of the former DRS building at 700 Quince Orchard Road. This phase is SDP application number 7927-2018, which proposes a new 100-space parking structure, 102 new surface parking spaces, portions of 2 new public streets, and other site improvements. The Planning Commission last considered this property in its approval in May of this year of an amendment to the final site plan for the property to convert the building's ground floor to parking and to enhance the building facade. What you see on the screen before you is an aerial of the property. Just to orient you, right is north. So to the right is Bank Street to the north. You then have Quince Orchard Road to the east. You have First Field Road to the west. Next slide, please. Just to show you where we've been in the entitlement history of this property, in 2016, the site was rezoned to MXD, and you see the sketch plan before you. The sketch plan broke up the existing super block into a new mixed-use development with new public streets and blocks. Block 1, which is the subject of tonight's public hearing, is for the adaptive reuse of the DRS building with new commercial development. Blocks 2A and 2B, right up there, those are to be developed with residential uses. An applicant has recently filed a SDP application to redevelop these blocks with residential uses, and you'll hear more about that from the applicant in a little while. Block 3 in the sketch plan is owned and controlled by others. The sketch plan required that the initial SDP application include Block 1, clearly define parking, and include a phasing plan. As mentioned, integral to the sketch plan was the adaptive reuse of the DRS building at 700 Quince Orchard. And as you'll hear from the owner's representatives, applicant worked diligently to attract Supernus Pharmaceuticals to relocate their headquarters to the site, which is a real victory for the city. And in order to meet its leasing obligations with Supernus in a timely fashion, applicant needed to proceed with the redevelopment of Block 1 first, rather than bringing an SDP application for Block 1 and Blocks 2A and 2B at the same time. Next slide, please. So the first phase to achieve the adaptive reuse of the DRS building was an amended final plan, AFP 7864-2018, which was approved by the Planning Commission on May 2nd to convert the ground floor of the existing building to a parking facility and to enhance the building facade. And we have more pretty pictures than what you see right now before you. The current phase, which is the subject of tonight's public hearing, is a schematic development plan for Block 1. As Jasmine mentioned, this is a parking structure that includes 100 spaces, portions of 2 new public streets on Block 1, surface parking with 102 new parking spaces, and other site improvements. In short, applicant believes that the SDP application for Block 1 is consistent with the sketch plan, meets the requirements of MXD zoning, is in accord with the city's master planning efforts, is compatible with existing and proposed development, is supported by adequate public facilities and appropriate staging, and is very much in the public interest. I want to thank staff for their close attention review of this application. And with that, I'll turn it over to Andy Glick.
Thanks, Phil.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
My name is Andy Glick. I'm a principal with Rock Creek Property Group. As many of you know, we acquired the vacant DRS building at 700 Quince Orchard in December 2015, and in May 2016, I spoke in front of you requesting a rezoned MXD for the 700 Quince Orchard 14 First Field properties. I discussed at that time our business plan of turning the antiquated building and parking lot into a vibrant, smart, mixed-use live-work environment. Subsequent to our approval in August 2016 to the MXD zoning, we did exactly what we promised you we would do, which was to hire a regional leasing brokerage firm to mass market the office building both locally and nationally for companies looking to move or expand. And the goal was to find a tenant, renovate the obsolete building, and bring more jobs to the city of Gaithersburg. After nearly 2 years of marketing the property for lease, I am very happy to report that in March 2018, we executed a 120,000 square foot full building lease with Supernus Pharmaceuticals. They're a publicly held company with over $300 million in annual revenue and whose business focuses on treatments for the central nervous system. Supernus will be relocating their worldwide headquarters from Rockville to the city of Gaithersburg and bringing over 300 jobs to the city. Supernus has been in business for approximately 15 years and was just recently ranked the #1 fastest growing pharmaceutical company in the world by Fortune magazine. Enticing Supernus to come to the city of Gaithersburg was not easy. Rock Creek was competing with several other property owners in Montgomery County and Virginia that were aggressively courting Supernus for their buildings. In many cases, these competing buildings were already built, ready for occupancy, and just required tenant improvements. Understanding the importance of obtaining an office tenant and bringing jobs to the city, Rock Creek was extremely aggressive on the economic terms of Supernus by offering a below-market rental rate, a substantial tenant improvement allowance package, and free rent concessions. We were ultimately selected as the winning building. Furthermore, this deal could never have been executed without the commitment and help from the City of Gaithersburg planning staff, the city manager, the director of economic development, and the mayor and council. We collaborated with the City of Gaithersburg along the way and worked long hours with our engineers, our architects, along with the planning staff to come up with a design and to commit to strict move-in deadlines required by Supernus in their lease. It is a great example of the city working with the private sector in a partnership with one goal, to bring new jobs to this area. I'm not sure if any of you have gone by the building recently, but to meet the timeline in the Supernus lease, which is to deliver the base building renovation and parking to them by July 2019, we decided in April to start our demolition and exterior renovations. We are spending upwards of $35 million on the renovation of the building. The improvements will include new electrical, energy-efficient HVAC, roof, and new and large windows. In addition, we'll be changing the facade and adding parking and landscaping. The base building costs identified above have substantially exceeded our original budget and forecast. Furthermore, we are giving Supernus approximately $9 million in a tenant improvement allowance to subsidize the build-out of their space. This will be a Class A, LEED Silver office building and lab that will revitalize this section of Quince Orchard Road. In fact, after the Supernus news was released, 704 Quince Orchard, our next-door neighbor, was sold, and the new ownership is currently renovating the building and already has new tenants to fill some of their vacancy. The repositioning and investment in our building is already creating positive momentum and investment in the block. Our original plan, which we discussed in 2016 when you approved the MXD zoning, was to submit one SDP for the office and residential portion of the project. Because of the time constraints required by Supernus and their lease and the urgency for them to move in 2019, Rock Creek had no choice but to break up the SDP into two. The office SDP, which we are discussing tonight, and the residential SDP, which we submitted on September 5th, 2018. This was not our original preference because one of the major reasons for the requesting the MXD zoning was because the budgeted cost to renovate the DRS building and attract a new tenant was only achievable if we knew we had the proceeds from the residential portion in order to help fund the renovation. I'm up here tonight just reconfirming and emphasizing the importance of the residential piece to the overall development success of the mixed-use project. We have already committed to Supernus and as a result have brought a world-class business to the city of Gaithersburg. This only serves to further reinforce that the City of Gaithersburg Biotech Corridor is one of the premier locations in the country. Thank you for your time tonight and for all your staff's help throughout the 2-year process. Rock Creek is very excited to deliver 700 Quince Orchard to Supernus and to finalize the residential SDP so we can execute our original business plan to have a vibrant, mixed-use, live-work environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you're up.
Thank you. Talking to me, I'm Mike Goodman with VICA, the engineers on the project. There's a few items that we wanted to go over in a little bit further detail. You heard discussion about the proposed parking for the site. We've got a diagram to display it a little bit more clearly. There's 98 parking spaces that's going to be on the ground floor of the existing office building. We have 100 parking spaces associated with the proposed parking structure that's along Quince Orchard, and then we have 102 parking spaces that are just surface spaces that we fit to the north and in the south of the building. There's also 33 parking spaces on street that is proposed on Street A. The large parking, the large surface parking that exists today is not proposed to be removed right now. It'll be proposed to be removed as part of the residential development. The parking ratio of spaces to gross square footage that we have is about 2.2 spaces per 1,000 square feet of building. This building is classified as general office, but of course it is a pharmaceutical manufacturing company, which is a biotech use. Biotech uses generally have less intensive parking requirements than specific office because a certain amount of the square footage houses the creation of the medicinal treatments. As staff noted in the report, the council has the authority to determine the number of parking spaces at this time, and given the known tenant and their specific needs, we're confident that 300 parking spaces is what we need to deliver on this site. Another item that we've been working with staff on, is the road codes, the road code waiver and the proposed street sections. We have 2 street sections proposed. We have Street B, which is to the south of the property. Street B is going to continue eventually through to First Field Road. Street B has 2 travel lanes of 12 feet, a 5-foot sidewalk on the north side, and a 10-foot shared use path on the south side with 9-foot tree panels. We also have a 12-foot landscape screening buffer area between the shared use path and the property to the south. Street A was initially submitted with a street section of 10-foot travel lanes and parking on both sides, and we had 5-foot sidewalks on both sides. We've since met with city staff and worked to adjust the Street B section to include to replace one of the 5-foot sidewalks with an 8-foot multimodal path. We haven't resubmitted this to staff yet, but we will shortly to get their official feedback with this section. But you can see we've included the 8-foot multimodal path. That is on the block 1 side, the office side. We feel like that's the more appropriate location, as the path will have better connectivity to the employment use, as well as allow the future residents that'll be on this side a more residential feel and less unobtrusive entry for their front doors. Another item that staff noted in their report was the pedestrian circulation for the users who are going to be parking at the site. There was a concern that people who park on the lower level of the parking deck or the surface spaces to the north and east wouldn't have a clear entry into the building. They would either have to go up one of these stairwells to get into the building or go around the building to come into the front door. So after we met with staff, the team has reviewed it, and what we're going to resubmit is we're going to have access points for the pedestrians to come in adjacent to the vehicular entry. That way there'll be a separate place for them to come into the building and get to the elevator core, as opposed to having to go around or up the steps. And then the last item that we wanted to touch on that was mentioned in the staff report is there's 7 specimen trees that are going to be proposed to be removed as part of this application. 6 of them are shown here. They're in the heart of the site, and to implement the access and utilities that are necessary for the future tenant. Those trees will have to be removed. There's 1 tree that's on the perimeter, and we will continue to see if that tree can be saved. Right now, the amount of impact that's going to occur to the critical reef zone would technically require us to remove it, but we're going to see if, as we develop the design in more detail, we can implement measures to save it. And that's it for the items that I wanted to present. Next is actually Bob Wojcik.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
I'm Bob Wojcik. I'm the principal of DBA Architects. We've been working on this project for the last 4 years. We're also located here in Gaithersburg. I came here this evening to explain the design concept of the small parking garage we're trying to put in front of the building and convince you how beautiful it's going to look and be relatively unobstructed to the building itself. We joked about the size of this little parking garage. It's a baby parking garage. It really had 50 spaces on the deck and 50 below the deck. That's about as small as you can get. And the massing of this structure is really going to enhance the look of the building, more like a front porch than a structure parking that you all used to seeing, which is massive concrete structures. The lower level of the parking of the deck addition is basically at the level of the first floor. The structured deck is only 10 foot high, which is basically 5 feet lower than the second floor, which will now be the main floor of the building. Therefore, the view from the windows will not be obstructed by looking at the cars, but you will see the surrounding area on top of the cars. The length of the parking garage is roughly about 240 feet. It's not as long as the building itself. It actually provides sort of an interesting breakup of the massing. The existing building is like really, really long. People used to call it Great Wall of China. I mean, especially when you remove the trees, it's huge. By adding this lacy new structure in front of it and repainting the building to lighter colors and enhancing it with more glass, we're looking to make the entire block basically happier looking. The garage itself, you could please flip to this, right there. This is the view looking north from the Queen's Orchard Road. The glass structure on the left side is one of the staircases that leads from the lower level of the parking deck. The wall that you see right in front of it is basically a new retaining wall clad with natural stone. And then going further down, we have natural stone on the piers of the parking garage, and cast concrete spandrels, beams are basically going to be painted to match the look of the office building. We also have very short light poles to the tune of about 15 feet high from the deck itself. They're supposed to be located on top of each of the piers and oriented towards the parking structure away from the street. That adds another interesting facade element because they kind of repeat themselves along the front of the building on each post. If you go to the next, this is the view from Quince Orchard, looking north, and here you can see very easily what I was saying as far as breaking up the massing of the building because of the garage being positioned kind of half covering the building. Makes both the garage and the building itself kind of easier and palatable to the view. This is the north stair tower, also all in glass. We opted to go with full glass stair towers for not just the looks, but also for security and safety at night. They're going to be well lit, and we want people to feel safe going in and out of the parking garage. I believe that is all I have to tell you about the design. This is the view of the building from the future residential properties. That bay in the middle is the main entrance to the lobby, and the small small plaza area developed in front of those three bays is supposed to make a building feel more inviting and friendly to the neighbors across the street. That is basically it. I hope you like it. Thank you.
Anything else, Jasmine?
Yeah, it's one more thing.
Sure.
So I'm sorry, there's one more item that Jasmine asked us. I apologize. So one clarification that we wanted to make was that the existing penthouse that's on the upper floor, that is actually going to be converted to square footage that's going to be used for Supernus, and as part of that, there's going to be a covered walkway that's built that'll connect that square footage that's being converted over to the stairwell.
So is that some sort of machine room at present?
I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it is mechanical equipment for the existing building.
Okay.
Eris, were you part of the formal presentation, or you wanted to speak from the public, or
No, I'm
you're the
part of
formal?
the group.
You're part of the group.
Yeah.
Come on up, please.
I just want to bring to your attention that it was impossible for any jurisdiction be able to bring this company to their jurisdiction. I think because of your staff, because of John, because of Tom, Tony, everybody, helped us, Mayor, on time, cutting the times down because it was so critical that we delivered this by 2019. And if you remember, when we came in front of you asking you to resume this project, Henry was sitting right there, and he was very adamant that he should have the office first before the residential, if you remember that. And we argued that we need the residential to pay for the office. We asked, please allow us to do the residential, sell the residential, and then we will take that money and invest it in an office, because it's taking $30 to $35 million to do this project. But I think he has more power where he is today. He changed the whole project, and he made us to come in and do the office first, as he wanted all the time. I have to thank your staff. I have to thank you guys. Without, no other jurisdiction could have done this. No other jurisdiction. I've been developing in area, and all the jurisdictions that I've been doing this business, they could not deliver the timing, the staff, the review. Is credit to you guys. You have a wonderful staff. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. We know it, but it's always very nice to hear it.
I remember the discussion we also had in his hospital room over at
That's right.
at Suburban. So,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe that was the most convincing one. I don't know.
Very nice sentiment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that the end of your presentation? All right, then I'll open it up to the commission members and the council members for questions.
Maybe I'll just, if I can launch it, just to kind of clarify the four questions that staff brought up at the end of your analysis. The applicant did a nice job, I think, of addressing them or addressing them in their terms on the floor. Do you guys concur? Do you know yet if what they're proposing satisfies where your concerns were and during the staff analysis?
Not yet. Still, staff is still reviewing Brent's plans.
So it sounded good, but maybe you haven't seen enough yet to know for sure.
So when we get the final staff recommendation, we'll make the final findings to make sure that they satisfy staff's comments.
Okay. Was there anything about what they said that you're still concerned about? That, you know, for example, talking about pedestrian and bicycle facilities and connections, does it sound like they're heading in the right direction, or is there more there in that comment that is either off-site, near site?
I think staff is looking for more of a plan to show better pedestrian, but we're getting there. But
So
we haven't seen
Fair
revised
enough.
plans to show that they.
Thanks.
Other questions and comments?
Any thought ever given to reversing the garage, putting it on the side street, the public street B, rather than in the front of the building? And if so, what was the reason to move it to the front? Or as we call it, the back of the building, really, not the front of the building. It's the back of the building on Quince Orchard Road.
Sorry, I'm just
On that side,
on this
correct.
side, I see.
Right.
So the grade naturally allows for a change of elevation of about a level. The south side of the building is a level higher than what is on most of the east and the north side of the building. So what we were working to achieve was to nestle that parking garage into that change of grade, so that it wouldn't be as blocking the view from the office building. If we had put it on the south side, we would have either had to go on a level up above that, so it would be the first and the second floor, or we would have to excavate this whole area out and put it all below grade. We feel like this was a good transition between the two, and also allowed for easy access between the two, the upper level and the lower level with a ramp going down.
And the main entrance into the garage on the second level, is that going to be gated? Will there be any kind of control device?
I'm not sure. No?
So it's open?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So up until hearing your presentation today, reading through the volume of material here, I was very unclear as to how the parking garage was going to be configured. And I was surprised to see you putting it on Quince Orchard, but understanding that from the illustrations, which I don't think were in our packet, that you're basically taking advantage of the fact that the first floor of the building is now parking, so you put out structured parking that includes a deck on the first floor as well as up above. I think makes a lot of sense, and again, as you just said, working with the grade, it actually seems to work much better than I was expecting it to see. I just couldn't see it in the diagrams because you didn't have that side angle, but I think that works well. Look, to go along with what was said earlier, from 2 years ago to now, or from before 2 years ago when we had this empty building and no one knew what was going to happen, to having Supernus come in and having this project going forward, to go along with the housing side is really huge for the city of Gaithersburg. So, any issues of the exact plan aside, I think overall this is something that's a real feather in the cap of the city, and my hat's off to everybody who worked hard to make this happen.
Yeah, I want to follow up with that. I think echo that. I think this is a very exciting plan. I drive. This is my neighborhood, so I drive by this building twice a day, going to work and coming home. And I either drive on Quince Orchard one part of the day, and drive on First Field the other part of the day. So I've been amazed at the construction that's taken place there and the destruction, I guess, that's been the demolition that's been taking place. Because when you looked at the building, it was like a castle. I didn't understand how you would be able to take care of this facade and everything else. So it's an impressive architecture. How you've so the adaptive reuse here is pretty impressive. And as anyone who's been watching the city council since I've been elected knows that I have a bugaboo about parking structures and how they're hidden and how they're exposed. And I think you've done a great job here by taking that first level of the parking garage and basically putting half of it below ground and then having the grade off of Quince Orchard Road into the second level of that parking structure. It seems natural, as if it was actually designed and built that way. So one of the questions, so it's not unsightly at all, and I think once the plants and trees are there, it will still look, it will look even better. The question I had is, are you going to build that parking deck with the possibility and flexibility to expand it to match the full length of the building? Is that a possibility in the future? Because we've seen that with other parking structures in the city.
So it was designed in a way that, we understand that it could expand if it really needed to. Obviously, we know how many parking spaces are needed, and we're looking to provide that number at this moment.
Okay. Well, it looks like the design would accommodate that without it being too obtrusive. So it's impressive that you're going to be able to make this a LEED silver building. That's the plan right now. The other question I had is about Public Street B and the connection to First Field. When is that going to be accomplished? Because up until that, until Public Street A goes to Bank Street, the only entrance to this facility and building is going to be off of Quince Orchard Road, that big driveway off of Quince Orchard Road. So I was just wondering when Public Street B is going to extend to First Field.
So as part of the residential application that we submitted, that connection is included to First Field. So, obviously you heard from the applicant that they're eager to implement that portion of this plan as well.
But the parking lot has a curb cut on First Field now, so that wouldn't go away, would it?
This application, if this ends up going alone, there's connections into the existing asphalt parking lot.
Right, so it's
that will
across the
remain.
parking lot now.
So you could drive through that existing parking lot to access First Field.
Okay, would that remain open during the construction of the residential portion, or I guess there would have to be some improvements there?
I'm certain there'll be staging that's required.
So the fact that you call them public streets means that the city's going to be responsible for maintaining those streets once they're in place, that removing snow and making sure that state of repair, et cetera.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I'm excited to see it advance. I think Supernus is a great addition, and I think if businesses has been like it has been, their discovery and inventions and technology, 300 jobs is just a starting point. So it's nice, and I think we've clearly seen some stimulation here of other projects that have a similar goal and objective in terms of the scientific and technological development. So it's good to see that as well. So congratulations on that lease, and we're looking forward to having the ribbon cutting in 2019, right? Something like that. So, and compliments the architect too. I think he did a good job of integrating this. It will be different to see a building that's not brown. On my drive in the morning and in the afternoon. So
I just wanted to comment. I used to work in the building right next door back when I had hair. So you know how long ago that was, but it was, I just thought it was a gigantic vault, and I think the transformation is I couldn't see it when you came to us with the, and I was like, wow, this is just an amazing transformation, and I'm very excited about what it's going to bring to the city. So kudos.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I'll echo what's already been said and This is the time that the Mayor and City Council and Planning Commission will hear from anyone who would like to speak on this joint public hearing topic. We ask that you please keep your remarks to no more than 3 minutes. Note that the timer will beep and blink yellow when you have 30 seconds left of your 3 minutes so that you may begin to finish your statement. The timer will beep and turn red when your 3 minutes is up. Please note that any additional testimony you might have may be submitted to the city in written form and will be part of the record, just as your oral testimony. Please state your name and address or neighborhood for the record. Do we have anyone who would like to speak this evening from the public? Going once, going twice. All right, seeing none, do we have a recommendation from staff as to when we should keep the record open to?
So staff recommends Planning Commission to hold the record open for 24 days until 5 p.m. on October 11th, 2018, with anticipated recommendation on October 17th, 2018. And staff recommends that the City Council to hold the record open for 35 days until 5 p.m. on October 22nd, 2018, with anticipated action on November 5th, 2018.
So Commissioners, you've heard the recommendation for the first time. Any concerns with that?
No.
Nope. Okay. So is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a recommendation from staff of the mayor and council to leave our record open on this matter until October 22nd at 5 p.m. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone from the applicant team. Thank you to the planning commissioners. As always, you're welcome to stick around and watch the rest of our meeting, and as always, we know that you won't. That's what Mayor Katz always used to say. Up next on the agenda is from the mayor and council, and this evening we will start with Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Mayor. So.
Not mayor yet.
Mayor,
Oh, thank
come
you. Council member, don't get me in trouble.
Council Vice President.
I'm getting a text from Judge right now.
Council Vice President.
You know he's watching. Yeah, he is. I think he's watching the Emmys, really.
We miss you, Judge. All right, so thank you, sir. So thank you for every one that came this evening to celebrate the Hispanic Heritage Month. A lot has been happening. It's been very busy in the city. I also went to a few events. We went to the 5K VIP reception to celebrate the awesome volunteers, staff, and the planners of the event that brings in so many resources for the city. So thank you to the Kentlands Community Foundation and all the partners, sponsors that made this event possible every year. We're in our 60th? No.
Oh, 25th.
25th anniversary. 25th anniversary. So many more years to come. I joined Councilmember Sesma at the VA, the first VA Veterans community-based outpatient clinic in the county. And so it's exciting to have this clinic here for our veterans. They don't have to travel to Frederick or Virginia, right here in our backyard. So it's exciting to have that here in the community. I also attended the Envisioning Equity in Montgomery County. Similar to what we're proposing to do here in the city, looking at data to basically plan out what's going to happen over the next couple of years. The county is also looking at ways to use data to make more equitable decisions concerning housing, healthcare especially, and a host of other ideas. There's going to be one other Envisioning Equity event next month, and you can probably get more information off of the county website to get the next date for when that's going to be happening. I was recently appointed to the Maryland Municipal League's Legislative Committee. We just had our meeting where we talked about our annual agenda item for 2019, and so what our priority will be across the state. And we will be focusing on small cell infrastructure. Want to make sure that we are continuing our opposition to preemption, and so that our jurisdictions have more authority and say over how these cell structures will be coming to our community. The Maryland Hispanic Gala had their celebration where they give out scholarships to our students. The Hispanic Gala does scholarships of almost $40,000 every year, and it's open to students of any race, so not just for Hispanic students. Anyone's welcome to apply, and it's always a huge turnout, so thank you to the businesses that supported that event. Back to basics, held a community forum. The Lincoln Park Community Foundation held a candidate forum for the gubernatorial candidates, the governor's race, the county executive candidates, and the chief of police was also in attendance to answer questions from the community. We're having the general election Tuesday, November 6th, so please do your civic duty and read up on all of the candidates that will be on the ballot, and make sure you are well aware and you get to the polls and vote in this important election on Tuesday, November 6th. And we're less than 60 days away from Election Day, and early voting starts in mid-October, so please get out there and vote. And before I pass this along to Neil, I have a message to read about our closed executive session so we held a closed meeting at City Hall by the Mayor and City Council on Tuesday, September 4th, 2018 at approximately 9:39 p.m. Pursuant to a motion adopted unanimously. The meeting was proposed to be closed pursuant to the general provisions article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, Section 3-305B1I. The appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom it has jurisdiction. The topic discussed was a personnel matter to conduct the city attorney's annual performance evaluation. Present at this meeting were Mayor Ashman, Councilmember Harris, Sales, Sesma, Spiegel, and Wu. City staff present were City Manager Tomasello and City Attorney Board. Upon conclusion of the discussion, the closed meeting was adjourned at approximately 10:10 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorianne. Neil, please.
All right, so first of all, for those of us of the Hebrew persuasion, I hope you had a good holiday last week with Rosh Hashanah, and hope you have an easy fast tomorrow for those who are participating in the Yom Kippur. On September 6th, I attended the event from the Suburban Maryland Transportation Alliance, a group that is trying to advocate for better transportation options. There was a presentation from the State Highway Authority on what they're doing to improve Highway 270 and the Beltway. This is the short-term improvements as opposed to the longer-term plan that is being proposed. The governor had allocated $100 million and put it out for bid for various improvements. So what we should expect to see in the next year or two happening on 270 in particular would be signalization and extensions of the on-ramps, so that there will be basically quotas of people getting on the highway. That's been proven in other jurisdictions to work well to reduce congestion on the highway. There will also be an additional lane added down by the spur, not by actually widening the pavement, but by shrinking the width of the lanes a little bit. From the current width by about 1.5 feet. Each lane buys you an extra lane, and that should be enough to add a little bit of extra capacity in the short term. There are a number of other improvements happening up and down. There are 14 bottlenecks that have been identified that some methods are going into place to relieve them. as well as a number of other alternatives that are being addressed or evaluated at this point. So hopefully there will be some relief in the near term based on the $100 million that has been allocated so far. So that was a great presentation, and I thank the organization for their good work. I participated in the opening retreat for the Leadership Montgomery program along with my colleague Robert Wu that Lorianne Sales had participated in several years back. It was an awesome event. It was I'd only heard great things about the organization and their events before signing up for the next 9 months of programs, but it exceeded my expectations. It was exhausting, but really very positive and a great way to meet people, but also a great way to learn more about the county and about myself, frankly. And I thought I knew everything about myself by now. And finally, I'd just like to add on to the discussion of what's happening at 700 Quince Orchard with Supernus moving into Gaithersburg, and point out that Montgomery County is one of the largest centers of biotech, biohealth business in the country. I think it's the 4th largest at this point. More than 50% of the commercial side of biotech in this county is within the city limits of Gaithersburg and growing. So I don't know exactly where we're going to come out on the visioning exercise, but I'm pretty sure that continuing to build a thriving biotech sector is going to be a very high priority for us. So, more signs of success, and we hear rumblings that there's even more coming. So it's all great. Thank you. That'll be it for now.
Thanks, Neil. Mike.
Okay, thank you. Happy Constitution Day, 231 years ago today. The majority of the representatives from the 13 states agreed to adopt the Constitution. It was a few more years before they got to the Bill of Rights, but the form of government was established on this day 231 years ago, so hope you celebrate. I want to thank the mayor and the council vice president for letting me read the proclamation declaring this month Hispanic Heritage Month in the city of Gaithersburg. I know a lot of people focus on Hispanic immigrants, but there are a lot of Hispanic Americans whose families and heritage were here before the United States. Hispanics have been in the western United States for almost 500 years when you consider Mexico or New Mexico and Arizona, parts of Texas, California, et cetera. So not everybody was an immigrant. Immigrants get the job done, but we're all very proud of our Hispanic American heritage and our contributions to the culture as well. So it's great to have a month to celebrate that. Let's see. Councilmember Sales mentioned the opening and dedication of the Veterans Administration Clinic, community clinic here. I was told that the attendance at this opening and dedication was the largest they've had for any such facility that's opened in the area in the last couple of years. So it was great to have both of our senators there and a number of other electeds there. So, we worked hard, probably starting over a decade ago, to have that center established in Gaithersburg, and it's about 100 feet outside the city limits, but it's great to have it there. There are about 45,000 veterans in the county who are going to be served by that facility, and it's great to have that. They're going to be able to take care of new technology and healthcare and get the services they need, so hopefully that will go well. On Friday, I attended the Liberty's Promise annual fundraiser. Liberty's Promise is an organization that supports young immigrant youth who have recently moved to Gaithersburg, the Gaithersburg area, or actually the Metro DC area. One of the schools where Liberty's Promise has a program is Gaithersburg High School. And for about 9 years now, the mayor and I have been involved in meeting with the youth and with the staff at Gaithersburg High School. And for some reason, Liberty's Promise decided to recognize me with an award, the John Greeley Award, on Friday night. So when I accepted the award, I accepted it on behalf of the city of Gaithersburg, because I wouldn't be able to do the things that I do in support of their efforts the same with the mayor as well. We wouldn't be able to do that without the support of the people who put us in office and without the support of the city. So they're a great partner. I know we've had a number of students who've been interns in the city from Liberty's Promise. These are kids that want to learn about the American dream and then learn how to and then live it, and they've been very successful in doing that. So congratulations to Liberty's Promise, and thank you very much for the award. On Sunday, the Knight Foundation ran their first Race for Recovery at Rio Washingtonian, a 5K race. The mayor and I were there at the start. And I was there at the finish, but I didn't run. I just stayed around and watched people run around the course. It's a nice little course. It runs around the lake twice. It's a 5K course, but it was a pretty impressive turnout for the first time event. There are 575 runners and walkers registered for that, so that's pretty significant. So I expect that they will do that again next year. It's an important cause. It deals with supporting those in recovery from drug abuse and addiction, and alcohol abuse and addiction. So it's certainly a problem that's not going away, and it was great to see that first successful event. So, and I think that's it for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. As for me, I just want to say how much I deeply regret not being able to use the little timer gizmo this evening. But I guess it makes for a more efficient meeting, so that's all right. I did see a couple of Boy Scouts come to the meeting a little earlier. I don't think they're still here, but I wanted to welcome them and say thanks for coming. Always nice to have them join us and observe local civic activity, local government at work. I want to extend my congratulations to Mike for receiving the John Greeley Award from Liberty's Promise. This is a pretty big deal and well-deserved, and so really we're glad that you were able to receive it, and the city is very proud of you for that.
Thank you.
I had the pleasure, along with a number of us, of attending the Hamiltunes event a week or so ago. This was a audience participation sing-along of the entire Hamilton soundtrack at the Arts Barn. I want to thank all the staff and volunteers who were involved in organizing another wonderful arts and culture event within the city. And our own mayor, who performed a song playing the role of George Washington, did a wonderful job. And I had the opportunity to jump on stage and engage in a rap battle with a 10-year-old, which I promptly lost horribly.
It was good that you tried.
Thank you. Yeah, where's the footage exactly?
You did not? Oh, I have.
No. I had to say something.
We had staff participate in that.
Mike's phone might mysteriously disappear before the meeting ends. Neil already mentioned Yom Kippur. I think you said for those of us of the Hebrew persuasion. I also want to wish everybody who's observing Yom Kippur an easy fast, and it's been my tradition each year from the dais to apologize to any colleagues up here, any staff, any members of the public that I may have wronged in the past year, and I hope you will consider forgiving me. I wanted to congratulate Lorianne on her appointment to MML's legislative committee. I know Monica Marquina has been reappointed to the committee for like the millionth year, and it'll be great to have the two of you representing the city on that very important committee, which helps select the legislative priorities and advocate for the legislative priorities of cities and towns around the state over the course of the year in Annapolis. And I did also want to mention that our own Rob Wu was also appointed to MML's Hometown Emergency Preparedness Committee. So we congratulate him for that. I think he'll be a great addition to that MML committee as well. And speaking of emergency preparedness, I wanted to just ask a question that maybe staff will have an opportunity to think about, and if you have something to say about it tonight, that's fine, and if not, that's fine as well. But I was just wondering, in the wake of Hurricane Florence, if we or any other first responder groups in the region have been asked to provide any assistance to the folks in North Carolina or in Virginia, and if so, if we have any sort of interjurisdictional cooperation agreements that we might be invoking, I'd be curious to know, or maybe those folks already have what they need, at least for the time being, but I just wanted to ask that question. That's all I've got this evening. Again, we wish the mayor a speedy recovery. I'm sure he'll be back in action in the next couple of days. And with that, it is time for any comments from the city manager. And so if, Tony, if you have anything to say about Hurricane Florence and cooperation agreements, that's fine. But if not, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
So,
that's fine.
please.
We have not received any formal requests. We are a member of the inter-agency working group for the COG region.
Okay.
It would be a request to them to support another state,
Okay.
but we have not received anything to date.
All right.
Couple other items. First, relative to the proposal at Kelly Park for an elementary school. I did meet with MCPS staff a couple of weeks ago. It was a very informal meeting, just really getting back up to speed with their staff after their summer lull, whatever you want to call it. We've talked mostly process. We compared notes on the discussion that we had here on June the 4th. To see if there were any kind of differences of interpretation of what was discussed. And there were, as you could expect for such a long discussion, so we'll be working those out. But really, now that the meetings have begun, as we promised, a project page will appear on our website this week, so people can follow the progress of that project or that proposal as it kind of works its way through to some logical conclusion. Secondly, since we were talking visioning a little bit earlier, and at the risk of kind of belaboring a point I've made a couple of times already, the implementation of the bicycle connection plan. Now that we're I believe over 40% response on the parking survey, we've been interpreting some of the comments and some of the ratings that were given in the survey. It's a pretty emotional bunch of responses. So really the interconnectedness, as I've said before, between the parking plan, the bike plan, and the road code really can't be overstated. So we'll be slotting, first you'll see the parking survey so that you can get kind of that background information. Because in the capital plan there, the Quince Orchard Boulevard plan, the West Deer Park plan are some of the first up.
Right.
And those are easily the most controversial as well, if you look at it in the context of the parking responses. So we feel like a discussion makes sense, and we'll be bringing that to you as soon as we can. Also, just for your information, next week, Maryland and Baltimore are the hosts for the International City County Managers Association Conference. Dennis and I will be attending that Monday through Wednesday. I think Dennis is actually going to spend some of the weekend there as well, since he was on the planning committee. But we'll be out and about for those 3 days.
Great. That's a very worthwhile training opportunity, networking opportunity. I know the Maryland Municipal League provided a little bit of funding support for that as well. It's nice to host such a high-profile conference in Maryland. Maybe next time it comes to Maryland, we'll have ICMA in Gaithersburg.
Maybe.
And with that, we will have the economic development update from Tom Lonergan.
We'll work on getting them here. Thank you, Mr. Councilor Vice President. Just a couple of items. I don't know if you'd seen this in the press, and there was a press release about it last week, but we did get a nice note from the management at Emergent Biosolutions about some recent news regarding them. Emergent has joined the effort to combat the national public health threat from opioid overdose through its acquisition of Adapt Pharma and the product we know best, Narcan, the first and only needle-free formulation of naloxone approved by the FDA. Upon the closing of the transaction, valued at over $700 million, Emergent will acquire both Narcan and a development pipeline of new treatment and delivery options to address the opioid overdose crisis and bring on about 50 new employees. 42,000 deaths in the U.S. due to opioid overdose last year, and they wanted to let us know how happy they were to be getting involved with this national public crisis, and of course thrilled that it's a Gaithersburg company, one we incented to come to the city, that's at the forefront of it. Secondly and finally, an August closing was Wormold Homes' highest yet in its single-family sales at Crown. The builder sold 429 Sauk Circle for $1.816 million. So far this year, the builder has averaged about $1.5 million on just the 5 closings to date. Fear not, if you're looking for some pricing that's a bit more down to earth, Streetscape Partners and Michael Harris Homes are about to open their models at Copley condominiums. So far, just over 50 of the 128 have sold, with settlements expected to start any day now. To date, all deals have been off of plans, and the opening of the model home should attract even more buyers. These units are 1 and 2 bedrooms and 2 with a loft units ranging from $300,000 to $500,000. Louise Kaufman and I recently had a chance to take a hard hat tour of the site, and safe to say it was quite impressive. We wish them continued success with the sales.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Questions? Okay. Oh, question? No?
Well, I was going to ask about Taco Daddy. 800, is it 800 Quince Orchard and Clopper or something?
555.
555, okay.
Yes. I have no update on them,
No
but we
update
look
on
forward to
them?
eating there. So.
And then there have been lots of questions, I guess some reports about the former Kmart location now under renovation. Can you say anything
The
about that?
furniture store
At home.
at home. They have several hundred locations nationwide. I think this is the first in Maryland. They've pulled their permits. Oh, no, I'm sorry. There's one up in Frederick also. They've
very
pulled their
busy.
permits and seem to be at work. I don't have an opening date yet.
Okay, that was the next question, anticipated opening. So,
I'll find out.
well, it's exciting to see the space is going to be occupied.
Yeah.
I think the tenants in that shopping center would be very happy with that.
I think so too. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is ordinances, resolutions, and regulations. And first up, we call to the podium Monica Marquina to talk about awarding Frederick J. Felton matching grants.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council, or Vice President of the Council and Council. It's my pleasure to announce staff's recommended FY19 Frederick J. Felton Neighborhood Matching Grants. As you know, this program was established in 1998 to provide an incentive for neighborhood organizations to improve their communities. This year, the staff team reviewed 31 grant applications. The grant requests totaled over $130,000. The team is recommending grants in the amount of $56,930 be awarded to 18 communities. The recommended projects include everything from free little libraries, and I'm disappointed that Judd was not here, but that's okay. He'll find out about the free little libraries, to sitting areas to tot lots. The communities will be informed of their grant awards and will have 18 months from tonight to complete the project and submit receipts. I would like to note that many of the grants the city received were primarily maintenance in nature with little overall impact to the communities. Under the criteria, maintenance projects are not eligible for funding. As you can see, while we received over $100,000 in requests, we recommended awarding less than the maximum of $60,000. The team will be coming up with suggestions to approve upon the program, which will include additional outreach to communities prior to the open applications period, as well as enhancements to the submittal process. Staff will bring those recommendations to you at a later time.
Thank you. This annual process is always a nice occasion to remember our friend Fred. Any questions from the council?
How many of the applicants and the ones recommended are new, receiving new awards or first awards in a few cycles?
There are probably a handful of new ones. Every 2 or 3 years we have, I think the main issue for communities is to gather enough funding to meet the match. So I know with Deputy City Manager Enslinger and Kevin Roman and I, we looked at the requests and the type of requests we're getting. We really want to make sure our money goes a long way. So when you go through a community, we want to be able to say, the city helped with this tot lot or this, lighting project. So we're going to come with ways to enhance the program, do more outreach, provide more visual aids, perhaps to help people know what type of projects that they're in the past that have been approved. But we want you to be able to drive through the communities and know what we helped with. So
Signage is what you're talking about.
right, signage, so different types of more bang for your buck, like the tot lots, like sitting areas, like we have a musical harp in there, free libraries. So things that really enhance the community are the projects that we want to focus on, but we understand that there's a need for these maintenance projects, so providing more guidance from our Planning and Code Division, as well as our Public Works Division, our Environmental Services Division. We're seeing grading projects that, while they're helpful, they really don't add something. They may be located behind a couple of homes. So while we understand that there's a large cost to that, this is really just such a small pool of money that we want it to go a long way. So we are going to come up with ways to push the word out and encourage different types of projects, and also speak to, Mike, to your concern about, are we seeing the same communities over and over again? Are we not reaching certain communities? Perhaps that we need to rework the program to help with, making the match. Is it a lower threshold for certain communities that may not have the means to meet the match? So those are all things that we're going to look at.
Yeah, we want to make sure that every community in the city is able to benefit from this, and I think that there have been some questions about whether that was actually the case. But I think, staff's been doing a good job, and I'm very observant about that particular issue. I just wanted to...
And we also want to encourage people who may not have a large project, but a community event. I know in my community, we recently started doing National Night Out, and there was a huge benefit from just that one event. Right. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but the impact it's really a big impact. So even if it's a block party for $500, where there's not a match, you would just show that your community either gave donations, in-kind donations, and we would help you host like a Labor Day party or a block party, something like that, to really help the community come together.
Any other questions?
Can I move the resolution?
Quick
I'm
question.
sorry.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Sure.
So this is, so I see that there's 4,000, so for example, 4,000. Does that mean the community has to come up with $4,000 for dollar match?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And oftentimes these projects are like $20,000. I mean,
Yeah.
like a tot lot is, so they're more than enough, they'll cover that. But yes, that's correct. So if, let's say the receipts come in and they've only spent $6,000, so we'll only match 3,000 of that. So it's like a match to match. So while they were awarded $4,000, if they didn't expend $8,000, they only received $3,000.
Okay. I think I heard a motion over here.
Yes, I make a-
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously.
Great.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Monica.
Nice work.
All right, next, we have a proposed resolution for fee schedule change, and we have Trudy Schwartz from Planning Division and Michael Johnson from Public Works.
Good evening.
Evening.
Council members. This is a resolution to authorize modifications to the city's fiscal year fee schedule, which was adopted back in June. This is to add a fee for the newly approved special exception use for automotive uses in the CBD zone, as well as a corrective fee for our CD zone process. Additionally, there are fees added for the sediment and erosion control and stormwater management, and another fee to obtain the digital video copy of the body-worn cameras. If you have any questions, both Michael and I are here to answer.
I had one question. The CD zone schematic development concept plan change goes from 5,500
Yes.
to 850?
Yes.
Or 840?
Yes, it was an error that was made by staff when that came out, because we have always had a lower fee for the CD zone to promote development in that area.
Was it actually 5,500, or was that the typo?
It was 5,500.
It
We're
was
changing it
5,500.
back
Only
to
because
the
we
800.
passed it
Because
with the typo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it actually represents an increase over what it was before?
No, it's a decrease.
A decrease?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That was it. That was the only thing I saw.
I had a question.
That stood out.
Okay.
It's a significant change.
Yeah.
I had a question about the body-worn camera video copies. So the idea is that this fee of $75 would be charged for anyone who wanted a copy of a camera, but that's still subject to the policy of releasing the video footage?
I'll
Yep.
let
Yeah,
City
that-
Attorney
that
Clark
is
answer that
correct.
question.
Okay.
In the current fee schedule, we have a fee for the in-car camera video, but we didn't have a fee for the body-worn camera, so we wanted to close that omission. But whenever there is a request for those, they are still reviewed. If there are redactions, we do charge for the redaction time as well.
Okay.
Because it does take the police department staff, it takes about, for every 1 minute of redaction, it takes about 10 minutes to perform that redaction. So we do charge for the hourly rate of the employee who does that.
So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how this fee applies both for the in-car and for the body worn. If someone comes along and requests that, does it have to be for a particular discrete period of time? Or is it a $75 fee for each day that they want footage from, or each? Yeah, I'm trying to figure out kind of how that works, and I understand that that would be on above and beyond whatever fee we would charge under the MPIA, the Maryland Public Information Act, for the time of staff to prepare those videos, right?
Yeah, I mean, with the requests that we have received, we have done it on the requests have all come in per incident, but in some occasions there are multiple videos. We've had some occasions where there are 4 officers who respond, so we have 4 sets of in-car camera videos, 4 sets of body-worn camera videos. So we have applied the fee
Per camera?
Per camera.
Okay. And so if you have different angles from different cameras, it's a $75 fee per camera to request.
Correct.
And then do we provide like a couple hours of time free? I know we do some.
There's 2 hours under the
Under
Maryland
the Maryland Public Information
2
Act.
hours are free.
So if it would take us less than 2 hours to prepare video, we wouldn't charge for it for the time that our staff spends preparing the video, but we would still charge $75 as the flat fee, the base fee.
Correct.
For someone to get that video.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Are other jurisdictions charging?
Yes.
for-
Yes.
Okay.
And our fee, we did survey other fees. Our fees are certainly lower than what the Montgomery County Police charge for release. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions of any of our staff who are answering questions on this item? All right, seeing none, we have a draft resolution before us. Is there a motion?
So moved. Move adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
you.
Up next on the agenda is from the city attorney. Anything tonight, Lynn?
I do have a couple items, hopefully fairly quick. We talked several weeks ago about litigation involving Hartford County, which dealt with takings by zoning, which was up on appeal. There was today filed a motion to file an amicus brief. Gaithersburg did participate. Montgomery County took the lead and prepared all the documents. But the parties requesting the amicus include Mako, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Cecil and Carroll County, Gaithersburg, Rockville, and Westminster. So that will, you have to have requests to file the amicus, and if that's granted by the court, then an amicus brief would be prepared, and again, Montgomery County will take the lead in the preparation of the pleadings in that case.
MML wasn't on that?
I am not sure.
Okay.
I didn't see the final confirmation as to whether MML chose to participate.
Okay.
Or not.
I was in the executive committee
Right.
meeting last week when MML voted to participate.
Okay.
So I
So-
hope that eventually they'll be on the,
hopefully.
if the amicus request is granted, then I guess then a separate brief will be filed,
Right.
right?
Correct.
I'm surprised that more municipalities
I think they didn't reach out to that many municipalities. Not sure why, but
Okay. Well,
those were the ones who chose to participate. Also, a couple updates on the FCC. They do have a September 26th meeting, which is going to have a pretty significant impact. There is a proposed FCC order on small cell facilities, which I think we've previously discussed. We are working on a filing that is due tomorrow for comments on the proposed order, which will be filed by the Smart Communities Coalition. And we've provided some input from our staff in support of that filing. Also on the 26th, the FCC has another proposed order that deals with cable franchise fees, in which they are clarifying what fees that municipalities can charge, and it would allow cable companies to deduct the value of in-kind services it provides to a local government from the 5% franchise fee. So that would also have significant impacts potentially on revenues of municipalities. So we're, again, following that one as well. So the September 26th FCC meeting looks like it's going to be a big one.
Yeah, I attended the Hispanic elected local officials constituency group of the NLC last week, and this was an issue that came up. I think that a lot of municipalities where they haven't already been preempted by state action are very concerned about what's going on here. But no one seems to be, our advocacy staff is not very optimistic about where the FCC is going to come down on this. This seems like a real taking of everything, to basically take our authority and our revenue generating ability as well, would seem to border on some issues of constitutional overreach. So I hope we're pursuing that, and I assume that the coalition is working with NLC on this, and NACO as well. So I mean, it's ridiculous what they want to do.
There have been some recent Supreme Court decision actually that ironically may end up bolstering the arguments of state and local governments in this regard, and I know that Lynn and her colleagues are on top of that, so we'll see how that goes.
So would that affect the existing contractual relationships of the franchise agreements that are in place?
Or would it only be not retroactive? Is that what you're asking?
Right, if we just
going forward. Right?
It would going forward, and I know some of the, we're also working on the issue of the proposed state legislation. And in the current draft from the industry, they are looking for, or they are a small concession for some existing agreements, but they're looking for not only existing agreements, but that there are already installations installed as being grandfathered in under the state legislation. Of course, obviously that action is just starting, and we'll have to see how that goes during the session. I know that certainly MML is looking at fighting that legislation as one of its, or as its top priority in the upcoming session.
One of the things that's remarkable is that, part of the motivation would be to reduce the digital divide and the gap there of communities that are underserved, and none of these actions seem to focus on that particular issue. So that's pretty disturbing as well. So this, it's not creating an equitable situation for people who need it. And anyway.
Anything else, Lynn?
No more good news tonight.
No more good news. Thank you. Okay, Deputy City Manager Dennis. Anything? Any other staff? Anything to report? Oh, you have something?
Well, the next item on the agenda is correspondence, which we don't usually do, but there's something in there that I'd like to point out to people.
Okay.
We received some correspondence from Pete Jones, who was a 27-year employee of the city until he retired from the police department back in '99, and came back to visit the city for the first time in 13 years. And here's an excerpt from what he wrote us. He said he was astounded by what he saw. The city has certainly lived up to its tree city status. It's beautiful. It's a shame that residents can't see it from my perspective, seeing the growth all at once instead of a little each day. The Rio area was so special, it almost felt as if I were in Disney World. And the apartments on East Diamond are magnificent. My hat is off to the city employees, the current and past mayors and council members, for the vision and stewardship they have shown. Keep up the good work, and thanks for taking care of my city. It's really nice to see something like that where, as he said, day to day, you don't really see the changes, but you come back after 15 or 20 years and it's really been transformed. So just wanted to share that with everybody who doesn't read to page 400 of our packet.
Thank you, Neil. Maybe we should read that letter at the end of every council meeting. All right.
We should start the visioning process with this kind of a statement. So,
all right.
Anyway.
Please note the Mayor and City Council will conduct a work session on Monday, September 24th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. at City Hall to receive a presentation on short-term residential rentals. For more information, including the agenda, visit the city's website or contact the city manager's office at 301-258-6310. Thank you for being with us. In all due attribution to our good mayor, until next time, Gaithersburg, let's do great things. We are adjourned.